The Galaxy S23 Ultra is getting some of the biggest upgrades in years, and all features of the device are almost confirmed now. So here is everything you need to know about the S23 Ultra. The S22 Ultra is easily one of the best Android phone for photography, and the device has more megapixels than most phones around. But the company has been using a 108-megapixel sensor for 3 years, and even though it's no longer true that more megapixels always lead to better images, the megapixel resolution is still important as it allows you to capture more details to play around with the images. So this time, Samsung will be increasing the megapixel count on its Galaxy S23 Ultra, and the device will feature a 200-megapixel camera lens with bigger sensor size, and according to Ice Universe, it'll feature a 0.6 micrometers pixel size with an f1.7 aperture. For comparison, the S22 Ultra featured a 108-megapixel primary camera with 0.8 micrometers pixels and an f1.8 aperture, so yeah, this is likely to be an upgrade over the previous generation. And we can all agree that the 200-megapixel sensor will be a big upgrade from the 108-megapixel, but I'm also little concerned that they are using the latest and highest megapixel sensor because 2 years ago, the S20 Ultra packed the newest 108-megapixel sensor for the first time, but consumers faced several camera issues and the device didn't even meet sales expectations. However, several reports are claiming that the S23 Ultra will have significantly better images and video quality with improved low-light performance compared to its predecessors, so I'm hoping for the best. And you might have noticed that smartphones nowadays are heavily relying on processing rather than optics to take their photos. And sure, a 200-megapixel sensor will definitely help to capture enormous details, but most importantly, the image processing will bring it to the life. Furthermore, the new 200-megapixel sensor utilizes tetrapixel, or in other words, it can combine 16 pixels in one for providing a positive shooting experience in low light. And speaking of low light, Ice Universe claimed that the night photography and night video have greatly improved on the Galaxy S23 Ultra, and the dynamic performance of this new sensor will also allow it to produce sharp images even when the light source is limited, and the device will capture shadows and bright lights in a scene at multiple exposures, and the phone will combine it to create the best possible HDR pictures and videos. And Ice Universe claimed that the handset will feature a new and improved telephoto lens, and it'll also have improved astrophotography mode for allowing you to capture amazing images of night sky. We will still see 4 cameras on the rear of the S23 Ultra, and the device could house a 40-megapixel selfie camera once again. And even though just 2 of 5 total cameras seem to be getting a major upgrade, Samsung will give you some new software enhancements features, and the combination of a better hardware with machine learning and software will give you many more options and power to improve the camera performance. So it's safe to assume that the S23 Ultra will outshine most of the best Android camera phone. Samsung redesigned the S22 Ultra by giving it a boxy design and an S Pen slot, to make it look and function more like a Galaxy Note phone. And the S23 Ultra is likely to have a near-identical design to the S22 Ultra, with squared-off corners, a curved screen, and individually embedded cameras on the back. So we'd still have camera lenses rings protruding from the back independently rather than being a part of an elevated camera island as on most every other major phone out there. And even though there's not a lot of detail about the display panel, it doesn't look like the company will opt for an under-display camera because the quality of under-display camera is still terrible. And let's be honest here, nobody wants to sacrifice their selfie images just for the sake of full-screen display. But speaking of display, it could get one of the best panel ever on a smartphone, as Samsung makes the best screens for their flagship phones. And the S22 Ultra display was already labeled by many reviewers as the best OLED screen, so the S23 Ultra will probably follow in its footsteps. It'll most likely have a 6.8-inch panel with 2K resolution, and Samsung will use its latest 12th gen of OLED display for providing you boosted colors with higher brightness level, and it could be better or on par with the iPhone 14 Pro Max's display that offers 2000 nits of peak brightness. So Samsung will bring improvements in terms of peak brightness, color accuracy, and HDR performance. Samsung usually powers its Galaxy S series phones with Qualcomm chips in the United States but its own Exynos chips elsewhere in the world. But everyone knows that Samsung has been having a bit of a crisis with his own in-house Exynos chips for quite some time. All of these chips have always been anywhere from slightly behind their Snapdragon equivalents, and Samsung's Exynos processors have received a lot of flack in the past due to comparatively lower performance and power efficiency than their Snapdragon counterparts. So this time, Samsung is planning to completely eliminate the Exynos chip from its flagship lineup for improving the performance of S23, and Samsung could use only the Snapdragon Gen 2 processor to power the S23 series. And some previously leaked benchmark test shows that it could be more powerful and power efficient than its predecessor. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip has one prime core clocked at 3.36 GHz, 4 mid-cores at 2.80 GHz, and 3 power-efficient cores clocked at 2.02 GHz. It is built on TSMC's 3nm process for enhanced power efficiency, and it is said to have Adreno 740 GPU onboard. And the device scored around 1,521 points on the single-core test and a 4,689 points on the multi-core test on a Geekbench test. For comparison, the S22 Ultra got 1,157 and 3,307 points on the same test. So it's a pretty big jump on performance, but we also needs to keep in mind that with great power, comes great heating. A report also reveals that the S23 Ultra will pack minimum of 8 GB RAM and it could go all the way up to 16 GB. So with the power of 8 Gen 2, the gaming performance of the device will probably get better, and Samsung will also use cooling system to keep its temperature as low as possible for sustained gaming performance. All Galaxy S23 models could come with Snapdragon X75G modem, and instead of upping the gigabit download speeds as it did with the previous 5G modems, Qualcomm decided to stick with the 10 gigabit speed of the modem, but the company is focusing on decking the new modem out with more new features and AI capabilities to enable more coverage area with low latency and power efficiency. And yes, the device will run Android 13 out of the box with Samsung's latest version of One UI, and over the past few years, Samsung has tremendously improved its software update support. It was once considered pretty average company for proper software updates, but nowadays, Samsung is even better than Google regarding how many major updates it releases to its mid-range and high-end smartphones. And even though the upcoming version of One UI would continue to look different from stock Android UI, Samsung is expected to adopt many features of stock Android as much as possible, and the company could also work on the visual redesign with more seamless animations for making it look unique and fresh. Samsung is supposedly using the same 5,000 mAh battery on S23 Ultra as we saw in its predecessor, but the company can squeeze a bit more battery life out of the S23 Ultra as it's getting more efficient chipset. And many rumors are claiming that it'll keep the same 45-watt charging support, so it's still not outstanding compared to the higher charging standards used by rivals like OnePlus and Xiaomi, but it's fast enough for fully charging your phone in about 1 hour. Other features that we could expect on the phone include an ultrasonic under-display fingerprint scanner, an IP rating for dust and water resistance, improvements in S Pen functionality, and stereo speakers for better sound quality. Samsung usually releases its S-series smartphones in the first quarter of the year, but some latest rumors on the S23's launch cycle indicates that the device could arrive a little earlier than last year. So we could see the Galaxy S23 Ultra as soon as the middle of January, but there's always chance that its release could be delayed due to chip shortages and manufacturing problems that have been rampant throughout the industry since the start of the pandemic. But unless another major supply chain problem breaks out, it seems like a safe bet to assume that the S23 Ultra will be launching on time. And even though there is not much information regarding the pricing of S23 Ultra, the device could have the same $1,199 starting price as its predecessor. But I would be happy to see a price drop, as its closest rival, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, starts a little cheaper at $1,099. And there's plenty of time for more leaks as we approach the end of this year, so you can expect more news on the S23 lineup over the coming weeks. And this video is completely based on some leaks and rumors of S23 Ultra, so take most of the information with a pinch of salt, And what do you think about the S23 Ultra? Tell me in the comments. Thanks for watching this video and I'll see you in the next one.